Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. If I must be reborn as a human in another life, then, Mother, if I am fortunate enough to marry a good man, please come back and be my child. I will give you everything you ever wanted. I will cherish you, love you, and make you the happiest child in the world. Autumn passed, winter arrived. In Hunan, a heavy snowfall struck. It was said that countless livestock and people died in the disaster. Yet instead of organizing relief for the victims, the emperor set up altars to pray to the Tao. But what was meant to happen would happen sooner or later. One night, Princess Cheng launched a rebellion. She declared that the emperor was a foolish ruler unworthy of the throne. She claimed she would follow the example of Wu Zetian and become a female emperor herself. She even personally beheaded her own younger brother, but the very next day, she was found dead in her own bedchamber. The court ministers, led by Grand Secretary Song, unanimously supported the crown prince's ascension to the throne. Within just a few days, the emperor of the Great Qing Empire had been replaced. The common people didn't really care who sat on the throne. As long as someone could allow them to live decent lives, even if the person on the throne were a 3-year-old child, they would accept it. The crown prince, however, was truly different from his father. Before long, he had already arranged proper relief for the disaster victims. Throughout the court, officials praised the new emperor's wisdom. The refugees outside Beijing disappeared almost overnight. It was said that those who wished to return home had been arranged to do so, while those who didn't want to return were given land where they were and helped to build new homes. I didn't understand much about politics, but judging from these actions alone, the new emperor was certainly no ordinary man. In April, the spring breeze was gentle, neither cold nor hot. I was standing at the back gate receiving a delivery of fish and shrimp when Lydia suddenly ran toward me in a panic. I asked her what was wrong. She only cried, stammering without being able to speak. I thought something terrible had happened at home and quickly pulled her along as we ran back. But when we reached the gate, we found a crowd gathered outside, watching the commotion. A carriage stood parked at the entrance, with several tall horses tied to the old pear tree. It took quite an effort to squeeze through the crowd. Inside the courtyard, everyone from the family was already there. Our small house was cramped. There was simply no room large enough to receive so many guests. So chairs had been brought out, and they were sitting in the yard talking. The man seated in the center had pale skin, no beard, and hair as white as snow. He wore a plain gray robe. Judging by his appearance, he was much older than Lord Wen. I immediately knew he must be a eunuch from the palace. He had dressed in ordinary clothes. Clearly he didn't wish to attract attention. I pulled Lydia forward and bowed. "Greetings, sir. Our home is small and humble. Please forgive the inconvenience." He was surprisingly kind. His voice wasn't sharp or shrill the way books described eunuchs. He even helped me to my feet himself. Filled with confusion, I instinctively helped him sit down again. "You must be Arya Chen, the young lady, correct?" He actually knew my name, but at my age, being called a young lady was hardly appropriate anymore. "Yes. I am Arya Chen. I've heard your seafood wontons are excellent. May this old man have the chance to taste them today?" He even knew about my seafood wontons. I guessed he must know Adrian Wen. The seafood was bought this morning. It's still at the shop. "Second brother," I called to Julian Wen, "please go to the shop and bring it back for me. And tell Madam he to send 3 gin of pork ribs as well." "Third brother," I said to Lucas Wen, "come with me and help tidy up the main hall. How can we let guests sit outside in the courtyard like this? After all, these people clearly weren't ordinary guests. We couldn't possibly let them eat their meal out in the yard. The main hall was fairly spacious. Normally Lord One and Lady One lived there. The outer room served as a reception area, separated by a folding screen from the inner sleeping chamber. We moved the screen, and Lydia One and I quickly tidied the place up. It wouldn't be luxurious, but at least it would be decent enough for a meal. As for the dozens of guards accompanying them, we could arrange for them to stay in Julian One and Lucas One's rooms. Lydia One followed behind me the entire time, wiping tears from her eyes. Only after she had cried enough did I finally ask what had happened. She told me that the man earlier had said the whole family would soon move to the capital. Adrian One had already sent people to clean and prepare the residence there. "Are you coming too, sister?" she asked. I had long known that this day would eventually come, so I simply rubbed her head. "How old am I now?" "The reason I haven't married all these years was to take care of you. Now that Big Brother wants to bring the whole family to live with him, you should go happily. As for me, I'll return to the village and marry Cody at the entrance of the village. Once I'm married, if you want to visit me, you can come anytime. The capital isn't that far from Bienjing." Is something like this really worth crying over? I needed dough while comforting her. If Cody really existed, that would actually be good. At least then I could marry him. Once my heart stopped holding on to impossible hopes, everything would be easier. But dreams were dreams, nothing more than empty fantasies. "You're lying," Lydia One suddenly said. "There is no Cody. Mother already told you before, she wanted Big Brother to marry you. If Big Brother married you, you'd be my sister-in-law. Then you'd naturally return to the capital with us." Only then did I realize, so Adrian One's name was Adrian One, courtesy name Ruxu. If I had agreed back then, I shook my head and smiled bitterly. Even if I had agreed, so what? The path of officialdom was already difficult. After everything Adrian One had gone through, it would naturally be even harder for him. He should marry a wife who could help support him. What could I possibly give him? Besides, the way he treated me had never been anything special. "Who told you such nonsense?" I said. "You sound so serious saying things like that." "I was already betrothed to Cody. When I returned home last year, I learned that he still hasn't married anyone. He's still waiting for me. How could I betray his feelings? And don't ever mention Mother's words in front of other people. It could damage your brother's reputation. Do you understand?" She hesitated for a long time before finally stammering out her question. Then, "Can I go with you to Cody's house?" I laughed softly. "Tell me, what family takes a wife and also raises the wife's younger sister? Once we finish the wedding ceremony in the countryside, we'll naturally return to Bienjing. The shop belongs to me. You can stay there as long as you like. I'll take care of you." Lydia One was almost like a child I had raised myself. For so many years we had relied on each other. It was only natural that she treated me sincerely and could not bear to part from me. But for a single message to be delivered, a palace eunuch had personally come here. Judging by the treatment he received, he was clearly no ordinary person. For Lydia One, returning to the capital with the One family was the best choice. Except for the dumplings, the rest of the dishes were simple home cooking. Normally, once they finished this meal, they would return to the capital. That eunuch wished to speak with me privately. Inside the room there were only the two of us. He sat while I remained standing. He looked me over from head to toe. "Ruxu and His Majesty regard each other as brothers," he began. "When His Majesty was still Crown Prince, he was not favored. At one time he was even exiled to Shaanxi. While studying at the academy there, besides Ruxu, there was also the youngest son of General Tao, Feiyang. The three of them met and immediately felt as though they had known each other for years. Even after His Majesty was summoned back to the palace, the three of them never stopped exchanging letters. Ruxu possesses the talent to govern a nation. Later he succeeded repeatedly in the imperial examinations and entered the Hanlin Academy. When the Wen family encountered their troubles, those countless complications were all because of the late emperor. Ruxu risked his life for it. Feiyang endured quietly at the frontier, biding his time. Only then could His Majesty become the emperor he is today. In His Majesty's heart, who could possibly compare with them? In the future, Ruxu's official career will be limitless. He paused before continuing. Grand Secretary Song has already asked His Majesty to grant a marriage, hoping to marry his youngest daughter to him. His Majesty summoned Ruxu to ask his opinion. But he said that in his household there was a loyal maidservant who had cared for his younger sister with devotion and had been filial to his parents. She is now already 22 years old. If he does not marry her, wouldn't that make him an ungrateful and heartless man? The eunuch looked at me carefully. His Majesty asked me to ask you one question. Other than marrying Ruxu, is there any other way for you to repay this kindness? A loyal maidservant, so in his heart, that was what I was, not even considered a normal woman. His Majesty had already given me more face than I deserved. What more could I possibly say? The best ending was the one where everyone could walk away satisfied. Sir, you worry too much, I replied calmly. What I have done is not even 1/10,000th of what the Wen family has done for me. How could it be called a debt of gratitude? My father arranged a marriage for me long ago. When I returned home last year, that man was still waiting to marry me. For many years Lydia Wen and I have depended on each other. Naturally it's hard for us to part. But now that the eldest young master has returned to the path of officialdom, I no longer have anything to worry about. Once they leave for the capital, I will return to my hometown and get married. You may simply report back to His Majesty that the Wen family owes Arya Chen nothing. Today, Arya Chen has repaid everything she owed the Wen family. If one day the eldest young master marries, it would be my greatest honor if I could drink a cup of celebratory wine at his wedding. A lie, repeated many times, gradually even began to sound true to myself. It almost felt as if at the entrance of my village there truly was a man named Cody, patiently waiting to marry me. I had been born poor. By sheer luck I encountered the Wen family, and only then did my mind broaden and my eyes open to the changing nature of the world. I knew clearly what I wanted. I wanted someone who truly loved me, not merely a man, but someone who would sincerely treat me well, someone who would walk beside me through life as a pair. One heart for one lifetime. If that could not be, then even if I loved him, what would it matter? Since I could love, I could also let go. At worst, I would live alone for the rest of my life. After all, no one knows which day will be the day they die. Perhaps I wouldn't even live that long. The eunuch looked at me for a long moment before sighing softly. You are a broad-minded woman. No matter where you go, you will live well. If that is the case, I will report your exact words to His Majesty. And if the day comes when you marry, if I am still alive and free, I will certainly come drink a cup of wedding wine. You only need to take care of your health, I replied with a smile. That day will come naturally. I escorted him out of the room. After they left, I returned to the shop. Business was busy. By the time I returned home, it was already midnight. Auntie was still waiting for me with an oil lamp lit. Everyone today had something they wanted to say to me. But I didn't want to talk. Auntie had always been an elegant woman. In spring she would pick pear blossoms and peach blossoms, collecting the first due to store for making tea later in the year, when she brewed peach blossom tea. The porcelain cup would hold a soft pink liquid that looked delightful even before tasting it. "Arya Chen," she said gently, "in 10 days we will leave for the capital. Come with us." I will say the same thing as before. If you are willing, I will let Adrian Wen marry you. Then we will truly become one family. I never expected her to say something like that, and yet, the Wen family truly was as kind as ever, not a single word of it false. Her hair had turned completely white. These days she rested well, and though she had gained a little weight, she looked far older than the noble lady she once had been. "Auntie," I said softly, "for all these years he has lived as though drowning in bitter water. He suffered so much before finally gaining his freedom. Let him do what he truly wants to do. Why force him?" I held her hand and lowered my head. I could not say another word. If I spoke any more, I would no longer be able to hold back my tears, and I did not want to cry, because tears are the most useless thing in the world. "This child. We owe you so much. From now on, I will be your real mother, and your uncle will be your real father. You must never cut off this path between us. Whenever you have time, come back and visit us." That night I sat by the window until dawn. I didn't know whether it was the 15th or the 16th of the month. The moon hung in the sky, round like a plate. Its light was cold, yet not the least bit dim. It illuminated the darkness of the night, though it itself seemed unaware of it. The next morning, carriages crowded the entrance of the house until there was barely any space left to stand. Lydia Wen and I continued packing up the shop. On the 5th day, Julian Wen came to see us. He was usually a warm and gentle man. I had never once seen him lose his temper. But today his face looked terrible. The dark circles under his eyes were deep and heavy. Lydia Wen brought him a bowl of dumplings. He ate a few bites, then asked for another bowl. As if he hadn't eaten for several days. "Arya Chen," he said hoarsely, "Mother asked me to bring you home. Yesterday she fell ill. These past few days our house has been filled with relatives, wave after wave. Yesterday Uncle came with his whole family and angered Mother terribly. This morning Yunyang returned as well. I don't know what she said to Father and Mother, but Mother became so furious she fainted. They still refuse to leave. They're still at the house making a scene. Father tried to chase them away with a stick, but he strained his back and is now lying in bed, unable to move. I asked Lucas when to fetch a doctor, but the gate was so crowded it was almost broken. Mother said the courtyard belongs to you. So she asked me to call you back to take charge." His voice carried both helplessness and anger. I had always thought of myself as an outsider who shouldn't interfere in the Wen family's matters, but I never expected those people to behave so shamelessly. I was so angry I nearly laughed. I didn't want Lydia Wen to come with me, but she insisted on going. We hurried over and arrived at the house in less than a quarter of an hour. The 2 wooden doors at the entrance had either been removed or crushed by the crowd. Now they lay discarded at the mouth of the alley. A group of servants sat on them, eating sunflower seeds and chatting idly. It seemed the Wen family's relatives were not poor after all. They could even afford servants. When the Wen family had fallen into trouble, not a single one of them had spoken up. Now that they heard the eldest young master had a promising future, they didn't dare go to the capital to cause trouble. So they came here instead. The main hall was packed. There were no fewer than 20 people, men, women, young, and old. Lord Wen was lying in Julian Wen and Lucas Wen's room. A crowd stood on the floor. while a child was lying on the bed that Lydia Wen and I shared. The young lady of the Wen family, Yun Yang, was changing the child's diaper. "Who are you people?" Lydia Wen shouted angrily. "Why are you in my house? Who allowed you to enter my sisters and my room?" She couldn't hold herself back and rushed forward, grabbing Yun Yang away from the child she was tending. Lydia Wen looked unusually fierce. Although she didn't say it, she must have recognized Yun Yang. After all, Yun Yang was her own elder sister. As for the others, that was one thing. Perhaps at first Yun Yang truly had her own difficulties. But in 8 years, could she not spare even a few days to come and visit? She no longer looked like the eldest young lady I remembered. Her hair was neatly arranged, her jewelry glittered brilliantly, and her body had grown somewhat plump. The corners of her eyes carried a sharp, harsh expression. She was no longer the radiant young woman who once captivated everyone around her. Time was truly a miraculous thing. It slowly wore people down. "You're Cheong Yang, aren't you?" Yun Yang said uncertainly. "I'm your elder sister." "Don't tell me you can't even recognize me. Has your foolish illness gotten worse over the years?" "I was just changing the diaper for your little nephew." "Why did you pull me away?" She tried to turn back, but Lydia Wen held her tightly, refusing to let go. Tears filled Lydia Wen's large eyes. "My name is Lydia Wen," she said coldly. "Who are you calling your sister? You didn't care whether this family lived or died. For 8 years you never returned. And now suddenly you appear again? And after arriving, you make father and mother so angry like this?" Yun Yang's body stiffened. Panic flashed across her face. "Lydia Wen. What are you saying? You're Cheong Yang." These past years I had my difficulties, but Lydia Wen didn't want to hear any more. She dragged Yun Yang straight out into the courtyard. Everyone in the house followed to watch the commotion. At last the house grew quiet. I asked Julian when to take the doctor to see Lord Wen. "Lydia Wen, let go," I said gently. The two of them looked as if they might start fighting. I was afraid Lydia Wen might suffer a loss. With tears streaming down her face, Lydia Wen finally released Yun Yang and stood beside me like a pitiful little puppy. In those early years, life had been so hard. Sometimes we had food for one meal but worried about the next. I often saved food just so Lydia Wen could eat. I raised her until she became fair and round like a piece of polished jade. I could hardly bear to see even a single tear fall from her eyes. And now someone dared to strike her. How could I possibly endure that? "Now I am the master of this house," I said calmly. "If you have something to say, speak to me." I gently stroked Lydia Wen's head. That only made her feel even more wronged. Her mouth twisted as tears kept falling. "And who are you?" A loud voice shouted. "How dare you claim to be the master of the house of the nephew of the minister? Speaking such big words, aren't you afraid your tongue might twist?" The man who spoke looked to be around 40 or 50 years old. He had a large, sturdy build. He was probably one of Lord Wen's relatives from his maternal side. Soon the others joined in, shouting noisily. My head began to ache from the racket. "And who are you?" Yun Yang suddenly snapped. "To cause trouble in the Wen family's home?" Back then I had only been a lowly maidservant. Of course she had forgotten me long ago. "First," I said calmly, "I don't know any minister. Second, this courtyard is rented by me. I have the lease contract. And third, the belongings inside the house can temporarily be considered the property of the Chin family. I have no relatives like you. You people entered my house without invitation. Did I permit it? If not, I can report you to the authorities for illegally trespassing into a private residence. As for the Wen family members who live here with me, if you want to visit them or ask them for money, and if the minister you mentioned is truly the eldest young master of the Wen family, then shouldn't you go to the minister's residence in the capital to find him? Why come here to pressure his parents instead? You all seem very quick to receive news, don't you? When the Wen family fell into disaster, did you know about it? I'm certain you all knew. Of course, everyone has their own difficulties. The Wen family understood that. But over these past years, did they ever go to your houses to seek help? A person needs dignity just like a tree needs bark. Touch your faces and see, are they as thick as bricks from the city wall? If we pulled them off, could we build the wall 5 feet higher? And yet today you still dare to come here. I've seen shameless people before, but shameless like this, that's truly rare. As for what you people did back then, if the eldest young master of the Wen family can endure it, then fine. But if he cannot? Fortunately, the Wen family is a family that values propriety and etiquette. If I were a member of the Wen family, and now that we've finally had power again, I would drag each of those cold-blooded relatives who abandoned us back then and throw them into a pot of boiling oil, listen to the sizzling sound until my anger was satisfied. If not that, I'd throw them into prison for 3 or 5 years. Every family has a few dirty secrets they don't want outsiders to know. Finding 2 or 3 witnesses isn't difficult, is it? Children may not understand such things. But you people are already so old, half your bodies are practically in the grave, and yet you still don't know how to behave? At times like this, shouldn't you know how to keep a low profile and live quietly? Endure for now and wait for your chance, understand? Perhaps after a few generations, the Wen family might forget the old grudges. At the very least you should leave a path of survival for your descendants. But you people are truly ruthless. You didn't just block your own path, you blocked the path of your children and grandchildren as well. If I were you, I would go home immediately right now, light incense, and pray that Adrian Wen forgets about you. After speaking so much, my mouth and throat felt dry. When I was young in the village, people could argue and curse for an entire hour without getting tired, but now I was truly getting old. After just a few sentences like this, I was already exhausted. Where did this country bumpkin girl come from? Someone shouted angrily. I am the maternal uncle of the eldest young master. Would he really dare to look down on his mother's family? So this was the man I had just said was halfway into the grave, precisely because he was the eldest young master's maternal uncle. It made his actions even more disgraceful. Back then when the executions happened, I said coldly, wasn't the one sentenced to death your own younger sister? And your brother-in-law? Weren't they your own nephew and niece as well? How could you be so heartless? At the very least, you could have gone to visit them in prison. But from the very beginning you chose to protect yourselves and ignore family ties. And now you still have the face to stand here and call yourself the eldest young master's uncle? The eldest young master is no longer the same young master he was back then. If you think you can still threaten him using blood ties, you're very mistaken. He walked alone all the way to where he is today. And you still think he's someone easy to bully? Go home, take some medicine, and wake up properly. In just a short moment, 7 or 8 out of every 10 people in the courtyard quietly slipped away. Only a few remained, those who had come together with Yunyang. She was Adrian Wen's own younger sister after all. Since this was the one family's business, I didn't want to say anything more. After all, someone who had already thrown away all sense of shame and felt completely unafraid of death was practically invincible. When the doctor finally came out, I asked about Lord Wen's condition. "It's only a sprained joint," the doctor said. "Apply medicinal plaster and rest for 2 days and he'll recover." As for Lady Wen, the anger affected her health. "She'll need to take medicine and rest for a while." Julian Wen went to fetch the medicine. The house had been turned completely upside down. By the time Lydia Wen, Julian Wen, and I finished cleaning everything up, it was already dark. Yunyang had sent away the people who came with her, but she herself remained behind, with her nursing son, and occupied the bed that Lydia Wen and I used. At night she cooked some porridge and bought steamed buns. She ate and drank quite boldly, as if she owned the place. I wanted to return to the shop, but I was worried she might anger Lord Wen and Lady Wen again, so Lydia Wen and I planned to sleep together. We placed an extra wooden bed in the study for Lucas Wen, laid down 2 layers of bedding, and gave him a thick blanket. Julian Wen and Lord Wen shared another bed. Yet before we could fall asleep, after Yunyang finished putting her child to sleep, with a loud thud, she suddenly knelt on the ground. Tears streamed down her face as she called out, "Mother." Lord Wen must have heard the noise. Julian Wen and Lucas Wen supported him as he slowly came over. I intended to step outside, but Julian Wen stopped me and had me remain seated on the bed. Some of us stood, some Saturday, only Yunyang remained kneeling. Lord Wen told Julian Wen to bring her a chair to sit on. He himself leaned against Lucas Wen's shoulder. Lydia Wen and I sat on the bed. We hadn't even changed out of our clothes yet. Lady Wen could not get up. She lay there with her eyes closed, tears pooling in the corners. The sight of her was heartbreaking. Lydia Wen wiped the tears from her face with a handkerchief, whispering softly, "Mother." Lord Wen finally spoke. "As for the others, I won't mention them anymore. Arya Chen has already driven them all away. But you are the daughter your mother risked her life to give birth to. After she had already borne 3 sons, when you were born, she treasured you like a jewel. She poured everything good in the household onto you. Your 3 older brothers were sent to Shaanxi to study when they were only 12 years old. Because they were boys, they could not be spoiled. Every year, aside from tuition fees, your mother and I only gave them 5 taels of silver. Whenever they returned home, they always brought gifts for the family. That was money they saved by starving themselves and wearing the same clothes. But you, when you wanted to learn the zither, we bought you one that cost several hundred taels. If you saw something you liked, you wanted to buy it. Did your mother or I ever refuse? The teacher who taught you music, how much silver did we spend on him every year? Every season you needed new clothes and new jewelry. Outsiders all said you were cultured and knowledgeable. But they didn't know how arrogant and reckless you truly were. By the time your mother and I realized it, it was already too late. That year we investigated countless families before finally arranging your marriage with the Grand Secretary of the Inner Cabinet. They agreed to the marriage only because their eldest son had once studied with Julian Wen. They believed your 3 brothers possessed upright character. It wasn't because you were truly exceptionally talented. And yet, just because the man was ugly, you refused the marriage no matter what. In the end, you secretly fell in love with that useless scholar from the Su family. His father and I passed the imperial examination in the same year. He only became a 7th-rank official, yet every day he indulges himself in the pleasure houses. At home he keeps 7 or 8 concubines. As for that Sioux boy, other than his face, what does he have? He's the same age as the eldest young master, yet after so many years he has only managed to pass the Shiotsi examination. And your mother-in-law is famous for being a difficult woman. When you married, I already warned you. Once you are married, your mother almost emptied the family's savings to prepare your dowry. No matter how hard life becomes, you must endure it yourself. When our family fell into disaster, everyone except Lydia was thrown into prison. At that time your eldest brother was not imprisoned with us. Your mother thought he had died and cried until she nearly went blind. Later, when we learned he was still alive, only then did she recover a little. Then your mother and I began worrying about Lydia again. She was only 7 years old at the time. We feared she might have been sold away. Your 2 elder brothers were beaten every single day. Every meal we had was just steamed buns. Tell me, have you ever eaten burnt, half-charred buns before? Have you ever drunk thin rice gruel? We all knew the Wen family had fallen into misfortune. You were living a hard life in the Sioux family. No one blamed you. Didn't you just ask who she was? She is the one who saved the entire Wen family. After 1 year, she brought Lydia to visit us. At that time she was only a little girl herself. She was afraid someone might capture Lydia, so she gave her the name Lydia. She herself was thin like a bamboo stalk, yet she raised Lydia until she became fair and chubby. She even sewed warm clothes for each of us. She brought wine and food, slipped money to the jailers, and invited doctors to treat your mother. If not for her, your mother would have died that very year. For 5 whole years, we never lacked food or clothing. She even remembered to bring kneeling pads. Your eldest brother saved our lives. But she was the one who cared for us in every detail for those 5 years. And you? In those 5 years you never came even once to visit. Since you never came then, you shouldn't come now either. You came today because of the Sioux family. Very well. Today I will answer on behalf of the eldest young master. I don't care whether it is your father-in-law or your husband. The eldest young master will only help one person. If your father-in-law wants promotion, or if your husband wants an official post, think carefully and send word. But from this day forward, you will have nothing more to do with the Wen family. As for Arya Chen, even if she never becomes the mistress of the Wen household, she will still be the only true young lady of the Wen family. No matter when, she will have the right to make decisions here. Tomorrow morning, you should leave. Today marks the end of your fate with the Wen family. The Wen family owes you nothing anymore. How you live in the future will depend entirely on yourself. Inside the room, the only sound was breathing. Even if a needle had fallen to the ground, it would have been clearly heard. The silence was so deep it felt chilling. Yunyang collapsed onto the bed, crying bitterly, "Mother. Did you hear what father said? You don't want your own daughter anymore? Mother, say something." "Your father's words are also my words," Lady Wen said weakly. "Go. I'm tired. I want to sleep." Lady Wen looked utterly exhausted. Yunyang was no match for me in strength. I climbed down from the bed and dragged her back to her room. She wailed loudly. But even when her own son cried on the bed, she ignored him. I had endured her for the entire day. But now I truly couldn't tolerate it anymore. I turned and slapped her hard across the face. At last, the room became quiet. I leaned close and whispered softly, Let me tell you something. If you still try to cling to the Wen family, then Lord Wen's promise today may not be kept. Believe it or not. She seemed stunned by the blow. I leaned to her ear and continued whispering. Suddenly she seemed to understand. Her eyes turned red with rage, and she tried to hit me. But I caught her wrist. My temper is bad, I said calmly. And I never back down from a fight. What if I decided to get rid of your husband? If that happened, would you remain in the Sioux family as a widow, or return to your maiden home? But by then, you would no longer have a maiden home to return to. Think about your mother-in-law. If she learned that you caused her son's death, do you think she wouldn't tear you to pieces? If I were you, I would know when to stop. Your eldest brother managed to reach this point today. The Wen family managed to survive. Do you have any idea what he went through to achieve that? You never cared about him. So what right do you have to enjoy the fruits grown from his blood and flesh? I shoved her away, and she fell heavily onto the ground. The next morning, Yunyang left early. I woke up late and didn't see her. After several dozen days of recuperation, Lord Wen and Lady Wen gradually recovered. No more relatives came to the house either. Adrian Wen sent people to escort them back. After so many years without seeing their son, how could they not long to see him? There was nothing to pack. They simply boarded the carriage and were ready to depart. Remember what I told you, I said to Lydia Wen. The capital is not like here. You must listen to your mother. When I return to my hometown to get married, I will go to Bianjing afterward and bring you to stay with me. You can live at my house for as long as you like. I will take care of you. Those were the words I used to coax Lydia Wen, but she kept crying and refused to get onto the carriage. I smiled as I comforted her. In truth, I didn't know when we would see each other again. Perhaps only when I truly married Cody, when I had finally let go of him. The carriage carrying the Wen family gradually disappeared into the distance. It felt as though it had taken all my strength away with it. I lay in bed for 2 whole days. After that I packed my belongings, ate a simple meal, and entrusted the shop to Madame He. Time passed quickly, like sand slipping through the fingers. The past 2 years felt as if they had passed in the blink of an eye. The eastern sea lay thousands of miles from the capital, in the small fishing village where I lived now. Some people didn't even know the name of the current imperial reign. In the end, I had truly become an unmarried woman past her youth. Even as I grew older, I still could not find my Cody, because the man I once met had been far too extraordinary. The blossoms of spring or the moonlight of autumn could not compare to even a fraction of him. When I looked at other men, they seemed no different from rotten cabbages. How could I possibly like them, and yet I had no right to look down on anyone either. Reluctantly, I could only consider myself a rather unattractive pig, so please try to understand my feelings when I longed to find a good cabbage. After all, a pig's dream is simple. In its entire life, it only hopes to find a good cabbage. I carried with me several hundred pearls I had gathered over the past 2 years. The very best ones, of course, had to be offered as tribute. But the next finest ones were probably all with me, by the time I dragged my weary self to the capital. It was already winter. Snow fell heavily from the sky. The pearls in my pouch were gone, leaving only a few banknotes tucked lightly inside my robe. Money always made me feel secure. Now I had enough capital to open a shop in the capital, and even buy a house. After settling down, I went out to ask where the Wen residence was. Coincidentally, that day was the winter solstice. The winter solstice was the day when the imperial family performed ancestral rites. I had never heard of a married daughter returning to her parents' home on such a day. Speaking of Adrian Wen, anyone in the capital could talk about him for half an hour. Straight, in all the dynasties before, there had never been a minister of revenue as young and talented as he was. The national treasury was now overflowing. Even the emperor's private coffers were filled to the brim. Taxes had even been reduced for 2 consecutive years. I only wanted to know, where exactly did all the money in the treasury come from? How was he so capable? More importantly, he was still unmarried, young, powerful, and the most influential man in the entire court of the great Qing Empire. Which family with a daughter wouldn't want him as their son-in-law? There were even rumors that he had some hidden illness. Some said he disliked women, others whispered that he was incapable. I simply wanted to ask, what happened to the youngest daughter of Grand Secretary Song? Why did people say he disliked women, and even claim he was incapable, a man so outstanding, yet still unmarried at 31? Naturally it made people wonder. Of course, I knew his past clearly. Could it truly be that his heart had been wounded so deeply that he could no longer love a woman? Or perhaps he was truly incapable, though it was only speculation. It did sound strangely reasonable. The Wen residence was easy to find. It was the 4th house at the eastern corner, right beside the imperial city. I heard that the neighboring residence belonged to Prince Victor, and next to that was the home of Grand Secretary Song. From this alone, one could see how favored Adrian Wen was by the emperor. The gate bore no extravagant plaque, only 2 simple characters written in slender cursive, Wen residence. At a glance I knew whose handwriting it was. The pair of stone lions standing before the gate looked extremely imposing. As I stood there peeking around awkwardly, I must have looked rather strange. Normally there were probably many visitors to the Wen residence. The gatekeeper looked at me with a cold, expressionless face. I had no invitation, nor did I have anyone to introduce me, and today was the winter solstice. Minister Wen was likely on his 3-day leave. Entering through this gate would probably be difficult. The gatekeeper stared at me for a while, then took out a sheet of paper from his robe. After looking at it, he glanced back at me. Before I could even say anything, he suddenly shouted and ran inside. It startled me. The eldest young lady has returned. The eldest young lady has returned. His voice was so loud that half the capital probably heard it. The Wen family had such an astonishing daughter. Returning to her parents' home on the winter solstice was one thing, but causing half the capital to hear about it was another. A group of people rushed out of the residence. The man leading them seemed to be the steward. After all, always smiling at everyone was a basic quality for a steward, but his grin was so wide it actually frightened me. In the past 2 years I hadn't done anything illegal, so why was he smiling so enthusiastically? Yet when I entered the residence, it wasn't as luxurious as I had imagined. Everywhere looked simple, but not crude. The Minister of Revenue, the man who controlled the empire's finances. How could his residence be so refined and elegant? It didn't quite match the image I had expected. Passing through the main gate and walking down the corridor, I noticed how houses in the capital were built in neat squares. The front courtyard was mainly used for receiving guests. The back courtyard was where the family lived. But before I could even step into the inner courtyard, someone blocked me at the Moon Gate. After several years apart, some people remained as elegant as jade trees and orchids. Their presence was even more impressive than before, while others, even after carefully grooming themselves, still looked miserable and awkward. I hadn't expected the first person to come out and greet me to be him. He must have just come out of his room. He wore a simple white brocade robe. Around his waist was a white jade belt, and hanging from it was a jade pendant carved into the shape of a rui, delicate and beautiful. He frowned slightly. His peach blossom eyes narrowed faintly. The beauty mark near the corner of his mouth still carried that same seductive charm. Time always treated beautiful people kindly. He had hardly changed at all. I pursed my lips and raised my voice. Eldest young master. Of everyone in the Wen family, he was the one I was least comfortable addressing. I could call Julian Wen and Lucas Wen my brothers, but I simply could not bring myself to call him elder brother. "So now you finally remember to come home?" he said through clenched teeth, every word edged with thorns. "This is my parents' house," I replied calmly. "I can return whenever I want." The moment I stepped through the gate, I hadn't done anything to provoke him, so why was he suddenly angry at me? Of course I felt wrong too. "Looks like getting married made you braver," he said coldly. "You even dare to talk back now? Where is that husband of yours, Cody? If both of us came here, then who would stay home to watch the children?" "Cody?" I snapped. His memory was really too good. He frowned again, looking somewhat tired. I truly didn't want to quarrel with him, but that phrase, "loyal maidservant," was like a curse. The moment I heard it, all my patience shattered. "Have you been living well?" he finally asked, his tone calmer. "Why are you so dark and thin?" I nodded. "Everything is good. Except for the fact that you're not there." "And you?" I asked. "As you can see," he replied lightly, "I'm now the Minister of Revenue. What could possibly be bad?" That was true. He could do whatever he wished now. No one could force him anymore. What could possibly be bad? "I'm going to the inner courtyard to visit father and mother," I said. Now that I'm the eldest young lady of the Wen family, it would be strange to keep calling them uncle and aunt. "Go on then." I turned and stepped through the gate. A whole crowd of family members surrounded me, escorting me as if I were a prisoner. Afraid I might run away, but where could I possibly run now that I had come all the way here? "Arya. My child, my poor child. Come, let mother look at you." My mother had grown a little paler, and there were more streaks of gray in her hair. She was still thin. This year she was only 50, yet she already carried the gentle bearing of an elderly matron. She wore a long black robe, with a cloak of the same color draped over her shoulders, lined with white fox fur. On her forehead rested a ruby the size of a pigeon's egg. I rushed forward and knelt before her. I didn't dare raise my head. I didn't dare speak. I simply let her lightly pound my shoulder with her fist. Time was such a terrifying thing. When people stay together long enough, even without blood ties, affection naturally grows. Wasn't she my mother? A daughter who had left home for 2 years without a single message. Being scolded and beaten was already the lightest punishment. "You wretched child. You nearly worried your father and me to death." "Mother. I was wrong. I won't dare do it again. Go ahead and hit me if you want. Hit me until you feel satisfied." I grabbed her hand and pressed it against my chest, forcing back my tears as I looked at her, but instead, she pulled me into her arms and burst into sobs. "You wretched child. You truly wanted to anger your father and me to death. Your eldest brother sent people to Bianjing to bring you back. When we heard you had returned to your old hometown, they searched there too, but you weren't there. They searched everywhere they could think of, yet there wasn't the slightest trace of you. We all thought you had died somewhere outside. Who would have thought you still knew the way home? So they had been searching for me all along. Then why had he just asked about that nonsense husband named Cody earlier? How could he lie so seriously with a straight face? Mother, don't you know I was born in the year of the monkey? How could I die that easily? Don't be angry anymore. It's not worth getting upset over a troublemaker like me. When my brothers come back, won't they beat me up anyway?" I stood and hugged her, swaying back and forth. "Are you a bear shaking a tree? Let go." If you keep shaking me, all my bones will fall apart. I immediately stopped and rested my chin on her shoulder. Mother, you have no idea how much I missed everyone. But there had always been a reason I couldn't come home, because I still couldn't persuade myself to let go, because I wasn't brave enough to face it. If you missed us so much, why come back only now? Look how thin you've become. Your chin is so sharp it could stab someone to death. Now that you're back, Mother will definitely fatten you up again. As she patted my back, warmth and reassurance spread through me. Didn't people always say that the moon in one's hometown shines the brightest? Having a home truly was the best thing. It's so cold. Let's go inside. I won't leave again. There's plenty of time ahead. Mother can raise me however you wants. I helped her into the house, removed our cloaks, and climbed onto the heated Kong bed. A brazier was burning in the room, and warm air rushed toward my face. A maid took my cloak away. Mother pulled me up onto the heated bed. I glanced at the young woman standing nearby. She looked a little younger than me, long face, almond-shaped eyes, slightly dark skin, and small diamond-shaped lips. Her hair was arranged in the style of a married woman. Judging from her clothes, she was clearly a mistress of the household, but I didn't know who she was, so I didn't dare climb onto the heated bed casually. That's Sophia, the wife your second brother married last year. I quickly bent and greeted her, second sister-in-law. She immediately helped me up. The eldest young lady returning to her maiden home is the most honored guest of all. There's no need for such formality. Sit down quickly. Everyone in the family has been thinking about you constantly. Who would have thought you would return today? I've already sent someone to Prince Victor's residence to fetch Lydia one. If she hasn't gone into the palace yet, she should arrive in about half an hour. When she sees you, who knows what kind of scene she'll make. You'd better save some strength to comfort her. Sophia spoke with a smile. She seemed like a straightforward and proper person, clearly raised with good discipline. Second brother was quiet and reserved. Marrying a candid wife like her was quite suitable. Lydia has become a princess consort now? I stopped hesitating, climbed onto the heated bed, and pulled Sophia to sit beside me. That girl never lets anyone have peace. Once the family found out she was pregnant, your eldest brother immediately tied Prince Victor up and dragged him into the palace. That fellow is only 2 months younger than your second brother. The Emperor Julian personally whipped him with a cane. He knelt in the palace hall for 3 days. In the end, the emperor couldn't bear it anymore and summoned your eldest brother to discuss the marriage. You don't have to worry about Lydia now. She's carrying a child. Who would dare do anything to her? Mother spoke as if complaining. But her tone was full of hidden pride. Lydia married a good man. That's something to celebrate. It's not just because she's pregnant. Prince Victor truly treasures her. He looks at her as if she were a priceless jewel. He was originally supposed to leave the capital to guard Liaobei, but seeing that she's about to give birth, he kept postponing his departure again and again. Now that you've returned, it'll be even harder for him to take Lydia away. Your 3 brothers are still unhappy that Lydia became pregnant before marriage. Every day they encourage her to drive the prince away. Now he can't leave even if he wants to. They'll probably have to change the commander on the Liaobei frontier. Sophia explained, when I named her Lydia, it was because I hoped she would marry a good man like this. Since he truly treats her so well, that's enough. Your eldest brother is already so old and still doesn't understand things. With the prince treating Lydia so well, Where else could you find such a husband, skilled in both letters and arms? What more could those boys possibly be dissatisfied with? Mother scolded them with a smile. At that moment, a maid brought tea, pastries, and fruit. Mother picked up a peach blossom pastry and handed it to me. When you were in Beijing, you loved eating these the most. Every day they line up to buy them from the Heian pastry shop. Mother probably doesn't know, they're jealous. All three of them are already so old, yet little sister was quicker than them. Not only did she marry first, she even had a child first. How could they possibly accept that? Mother, jealousy makes people ugly. Don't you think so? I took a bite of the peach blossom pastry. The taste was exactly the same as before. Just imagining my brothers making things difficult for my brother-in-law and secretly encouraging my little sister to cause trouble made me giggle. Mother thought for a moment, then she couldn't help laughing too. Second sister-in-law, Clara one, covered her mouth with a handkerchief, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Even the maids pressed their lips together, trying not to laugh, three grown men acting so petty. If they aren't capable themselves yet still jealous of others, isn't that ridiculous? My daughter has returned, has she? Father's voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. I hurriedly climbed down from the heated bed and knelt properly. Yes. Your unfilial daughter, Arya Chen, has returned. Father entered the room. He looked much the same as before, though his spirit seemed strong and lively. The moment he saw me kneeling, he quickly helped me up. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back. I thought I had already lost you. Why are you so thin? Perhaps in the eyes of parents, no matter how plump their child might be, they always think the child looks thin. I helped Father onto the heated bed. He sat cross-legged and gestured for me to sit beside him. I knelt next to him and briefly told him about what I had experienced over the past 2 years. In truth, there was nothing particularly remarkable. I had simply traveled to many places. Well, seeing the world outside counts as an experience too. You must have endured many hardships. From now on, just stay peacefully at home and keep your parents company. Father stroked my head. I was already 25 years old, yet there were still people who cherished me like this. Wasn't I truly fortunate? Yes, Father. I won't wander far anymore. I'll stay home peacefully and keep you and Mother company. Have you eaten the peach blossom pastries yet? You loved them the most. Every day you used to line up to buy them, eating 4 or 5 in one go. I'm eating them now. Just as he spoke, Father had entered the room. Let her eat a few pastries and drink some tea first. When someone travels far away from home, how could the food outside possibly suit her taste? Mother handed me a cup of tea. I drank the tea and ate 3 pastries before Mother stopped me, afraid that if I ate too much, I wouldn't be able to eat dinner later. When Julian 1 and Lucas 1 arrived, Father didn't let me climb down from the heated bed to greet them. They didn't receive the privilege of sitting on the heated bed either. A maid brought 2 small stools for them instead. Second brother, Julian 1, had passed the imperial examination last year and ranked Tanhua. He was now working at the Hanlon Academy. He loved writing policy essays with an almost obsessive passion. Father said he wouldn't force him into anything. He could do whatever he liked. Julian still carried that gentle and refined demeanor. Everyone in the Wen family was good-looking, but second brother especially loved to smile. When he smiled, it felt warm and comforting. His speech was slow and calm, making people feel as if they were bathing in a spring breeze. Third brother, Lucas 1, resembled Father more, tall and broad-shouldered, with a straightforward personality. He was the only member of the Wen family who disliked studying. He now worked in the Ministry of Works, busily constructing buildings for the emperor. I admired him greatly. "Are you disappointed in third brother?" he asked with a sheepish grin, scratching his head. "In the end, I just became a construction worker." "I disagree with that, third brother," I said immediately. "You might call yourself a builder, but you're the one constructing magnificent imperial palaces and breathtaking scenery like paintings come to life. Others might never even imagine such things, yet my third brother can build them. Isn't that something worthy of admiration?" Third brother's eyes lit up, and he smiled brightly. "All the sons of the Wen family are talented," I said. "Whatever they do, they stand above others. No one else can compare." Just then, I saw a round little ball of flesh skillfully squeeze past my two brothers, climb onto the heated bed, and push me flat onto my back. "Sister. Sister. You're a liar. You said when you got married you'd take me to Bianjing. But where did you go to get married? Why did it take more than 2 years before you came back?" This little ball of chubbiness was the girl I had raised myself. If I were to say who I missed the most, it would definitely be her. Who would have thought that now she was about to become a mother, yet she was still like this? What was I supposed to say? Originally, I had planned to hug her and cry my heart out. But looking at her now, I couldn't squeeze out a single tear. How had she been raised like this? The complexion of a pregnant woman was supposed to look tired. Yet Lydia Wen's face was glowing with health. Aside from her swollen belly, she had hardly changed at all. Even after getting married, she still wore the same long braids I used to braid for her. She sobbed softly like a spoiled child, so adorable it could melt one's heart. "This is all my fault," I said gently. "I shouldn't have come back so late. If I leave again next time, I'll definitely take you with me." A man dressed in black stood beside the bed, his face growing darker and darker. The moment I saw him, I immediately knew who he was. Of course, I didn't dare continue speaking. If I did, my head might be chopped off. "If you lie to me again, sister, then you're a puppy. Your sister is a pig, not a puppy." Who said her foolishness had been cured? She was already 20 years old, yet every time she opened her mouth she said things that could kill someone from shock. How had the little dumpling I raised become so unreasonable? It had taken quite some effort to finally coax Lydia into calming down. When she met the prince, she was supposed to perform a formal greeting. But Lydia clung tightly to one of my arms, her eyes glaring at me like 2 lanterns. How could I possibly climb down from the bed like that? In our own family, we don't need so many formalities. "Eldest sister, please remain seated." Prince Victor spoke, rescuing me from the awkward situation. He even addressed me as eldest sister. How could I possibly accept that? After all, he was the same age as second brother, Jinhua. "Bring a chair for the prince so he can sit with the brothers." It seemed that in the Wen household, even a prince had no privilege to sit on the heated bed. I noticed that no one else performed formal greetings either. Prince Victor politely greeted everyone one by one. I reached out and patted Lydia's head. "Not bad." My little sister knew how to defend her sister. "Well done." The whole family gathered together and chatted. Eventually Adrian arrived. Prince Victor greeted him, yet Adrian didn't even bother responding. That arrogant attitude made people want to kick him. He sat down right on the edge of the heated bed. "Elder brother, get down from the bed," Lydia suddenly said. "Father already said that only sister and I are allowed to sit on mother and father's bed. Go sit with them." She lifted her chin proudly as she spoke, sounding completely righteous. I clenched my teeth. trying not to laugh. Look at that, he had just made things difficult for someone else's husband, and now he was being paid back immediately. Adrian's face was thick enough to endure it. Slowly, he stood up, his peach blossom eyes swept across Lydia and me. I lifted my chin and stared right back at him. Wasn't he always so capable? Yet in the end, there were still things I could do that he couldn't. His eyes flashed for a moment, and then he smiled. His smile was so beautiful that it left people stunned. Only then did I suddenly remember. Our family was different from other families. In our household, these few young ladies were the most precious of all. He spoke slowly. Then asked second sister-in-law. Clara 1, when will dinner be served? It's getting late. Before long, it was time to eat. The whole family gathered at the table together. The one family didn't have the rule of remaining silent while eating. Or perhaps such a rule had once existed, but after surviving life and death together, those formalities no longer seemed important. The dishes were abundant. Some of them I had eaten before, but most were unfamiliar to me. Father was in high spirits and wanted to drink a few cups of wine. His sons and son-in-law had no choice but to accompany him. Father and mother sat in the middle. I sat beside mother. Lady 1, Lydia 1 sat beside me. Second sister-in-law sat beside Lydia. Even though it was a round table, there were no strict seating rules. But who could blame it? Lydia and I were the two most treasured daughters of the household. We chatted endlessly as we ate. Naturally, I once again told them about the places I had visited and the things I had done. I want to see the sea too, Lydia suddenly said. After I give birth, take me with you, sister. She really wasn't afraid of anything, making such requests so boldly. I glanced at Prince Victor. I didn't know whether it was because I felt guilty, but I kept feeling that his face was growing darker and darker. I didn't dare say anything else. Instead, I picked up some food and placed it in Lydia's bowl. Sister, I want wontons. You make them for me. She started acting spoiled again. Now? All right, I'll go make them for you. What filling do you want? Vegetarian or meat? Do you want scallions added? At that moment, Adrian suddenly spoke in a rather stern voice. Hey, Prince Victor. Why don't you take your princess consort home? Our eldest young lady has only just returned, and she's already being ordered around for all sorts of things. When you go back to your own residence, whatever you want to eat, make it yourself. I secretly glanced at Prince Victor. To my surprise, he actually looked amused. Only Lydia's eyes turned red. She looked at Adrian, then looked at me pitifully. I won't eat anymore. Sister, don't let eldest brother chase me away. She looked so aggrieved, as if she were being mistreated in the prince's residence. Stop crying, I said gently. After dinner, once the food settles, I'll make some for you as a late-night snack, all right? You're pregnant now. You can't keep crying like this. When the baby is born, what if the child cries as much as you do? Will you have the patience to comfort them? And if you cry together with the baby, then who will Prince Victor comfort? You should smile more. That way the baby will be born smiling too. And when you cry, the baby and the prince will comfort you together. She tilted her head and thought about it for a moment. Then she wiped away her tears and happily continued eating. Whenever it came to coaxing this girl, only her elder sister ever seemed to succeed. Mother reached out and stroked Lydia's head. That's because everything your sister says makes sense. When we were little, she used to coax me to sleep, Lydia said softly. At that time I had just left everyone and was always frightened, always crying. Sister told me that if I wanted to cry, I should think about the times when everyone smiled at me. If I thought about those moments, I would naturally start smiling. I followed sister's advice, and I really did stop being afraid. I even began to like smiling. I asked her why. She said it was because when I thought of the people who loved me, they smiled at me because they wanted me to be happy. And since I loved them too, I learned how to smile. That was something that had happened a very long time ago. I had almost forgotten about it. Back then, I hadn't yet started working as a shipping merchant. Because I was strong, I worked at the docks. At night, the warehouse owner allowed me to sleep in the storage room. Lydia had still been small then. She was afraid of the dark and cried a lot, so I used those words to comfort her. I never expected that she would still remember them even now. Yes, Father said gently. Everything your sister said was right. You should listen to her more often. But in truth, the things I had said back then weren't necessarily right. They were just reasons I had made up, excuses to make myself a little braver during those lonely years when I was living far away from home. But our Lydia no longer needed to do that now. The people who loved her were always by her side. They could protect her at any time, lighting lamps when night fell, holding umbrellas when it rained, adding clothes when the weather turned cold. Our Lydia only needed to live happily beside them, even if every day was ordinary. Having them around would turn those ordinary days into beautiful ones. She seemed to understand. She turned to look at Prince Victor once more, then turned back to me. Her cheeks flushed pink, beautiful beyond words. I rubbed her head gently. There will always be someone who stays by your side for your entire life. If that person loves you, then all you need to do is love him back. Don't think too much about it. After dinner, Lydia and I stood beneath the eaves, watching the falling snow. There was no snow in Donghai. Father had drunk too much wine and was already asleep. Mother stayed by his side, worried he might feel uncomfortable. Second sister-in-law had been busy all day and had gone back into the kitchen, saying she would prepare the ingredients so I could wrap the wontons later. The rest of the family stood outside with us, watching the snow. I reached out and caught a snowflake in my palm. Lydia copied me. The snow melted into water in her hand. She immediately ran over to show it to Prince Victor. In the end, she had finally grown up. The moment she discovered something new and wonderful, she now had someone to share it with. Prince Victor's gaze as he looked at her shone brightly, his joy impossible to conceal. From now on, brothers, please treat the prince better, I whispered softly. Elder sister, third brother Lucas once said. It's only because he married the treasure of our family that we're unhappy. Second brother Julian when added calmly, I also married someone else's precious treasure. Was I treated like this? Worse, Lucas said with a grin. You drank so much that you couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. Second sister-in-law had 5 elder brothers of her own. Third brother Lucas when whispered quietly, all right, pretend I never said anything. When I get married in the future, I'll definitely find a wife from a family with fewer brothers. That way there will be far fewer troubles. I whispered back to him, you're absolutely right, third brother. But why don't you tell eldest brother that? I glanced at Adrian one, who stood not far away. He wore a black cloak, the collar trimmed with white fox fur. Standing beneath the eaves, he looked like a painting, so beautiful it made one's heart tremble. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.